Today, I'd like to walk you through an Excel financial model for an industrial real estate development. This deal was underwritten in 2019. It was actually a deal I looked at as part of my master's thesis capstone project. And I built this financial model from scratch. At that time, during the program, I took 2 real estate financial modeling classes. One was with Justin Kivel, and the other was Adventures in CRE. So I kind of got the inspiration from them as far as how to build this model. And today I'll just kind of walk you through it. I'm not going to show you how to build it from scratch, but I'll just kind of give you a flavor of how this deal is underwritten and talk about it a little bit. Again, the numbers are from 2019, so they're a bit dated. The cost of construction is extremely low due to the fact that it's from 4 years ago, and then this particular market had really low cost of construction compared to the rest of the country. This deal is located in Lafayette, Indiana. It's on a total acreage. The site was a total acreage of 23 acres, 22.59. Total site gross square feet, was 984,000. The cost of ground on a per square foot basis was $3.70. Net rentable square feet for the building was going to be 305,000, and that comes out to a net rentable coverage ratio of about 31%. Total project cost was about $56 a square foot, which brings the total cost of the project to about $17 million. We are projecting a return on cost of 8.5%, 8.5 cap rate. Projected NOI was about 1.5 million, and the rent per square foot was 4.79. We modeled a 3% rent escalation, 2.5% expense escalation, and this we on the site plan had 50 parking spaces, 250 trailer spaces, 75 loading docks, and the green space ratio was 20.83%. So I'll jump back to the site summary real quick and then come back to this main tab. As you can see here, I have a total of 6 tabs: the site summary, assumptions, sources and uses, annual cash flow, IRR matrix, and amortization. This is a site summary tab. This is a Google Earth view of the site. It's a nice rectangle. Here's a proposed site plan. Again, 22.59 acres, 305,000 square feet rentable. It's a cross dock, so there's docks on each side. And this just shows site summary real quick, who the owner is, site description, cost recovery fees, and then the land purchase price. You were able to take down a total of 50 acres. But we're just modeling out this 22.59 parcel. Right here we have the income statement. I modeled the assumptions for debt and equity right here. We're doing a loan to value of 70% with an amortization of 20. The rate at the time was 4.5%. For the equity, we're putting down 30%. And for the investor equity, they're contributing 90% of the total equity amount, and the GP will contribute 10. For the reversion assumptions, we have an exit cap rate of 7.5% and a sale in year 5. I'll come back to these return metrics at the end of the presentation, but essentially we have a 100 basis point spread from the yield on cost to the exit cap rate. So the yield on cost is 8.5, the exit cap rate is 7.5. This is just a quick sensitivity analysis from rent per square foot to cost to build. It just shows those percentages. I modeled it out getting leased up in the first year. So obviously we would want to change this to where it's staggered between just over a 24-month period. I've got a sources and uses tab. You can see that right here. Land is about $12 per square foot. Hard costs are a total of $39 a square foot. Soft costs are $6. Interest reserve is $2 per square foot for a total project cost of $58 a square foot. Again, this is really low due to it being 5 years ago, and then a market where it's less expensive. Here you can see the annual cash flow tab. Pretty straightforward as far as how we modeled this. Got purchase price, rent, effective gross income, expenses, bringing you down to net operating income. Then that subtracts out leasing commissions, TIs, and capital reserves. So that brings you to cash flow before debt service. Then you have the debt information, and then cash flow after debt service, sale proceeds, loan payoff, and then net property cash flow. And then our return metrics are here at the bottom. Below the cash flow table, this is where the waterfall comes in, which shows the split of profits between the GP and LP. And we modeled that right below the annual cash flow. So you can pause the video if you want to see that in more detail. Next tab is the IRR matrix. IRR is internal rate of return. Got the annual cash flow here kind of consolidated. And then for each year, depending on a sale, we have modeled out the IRR to the left and the equity multiple to the right for each of the 10 years. Lastly, we have the debt amortization page. We have it modeled vertically here, going down by period, beginning balance, payment, interest, principal, and ending balance. Up here, we have loan amount, interest rate, amortization, periods a year, total periods, payment per period, and payment per year. And these are what allow us to run the amortization table, and these are getting pulled, as you can see, from the assumptions page. So obviously, if you were to make this table right here, you would kind of build this out by linking to each of these. So you would first input these, build this table out, and then you would then, on your assumptions page, add these amounts and link each of these to the assumptions. Right here just shows a horizontal amortization schedule with year-end balance, annual debt service, amortization, and interest. And then let's go back to the assumptions page. With this being a 100 basis point spread on yield on cost and exit cap, which is 8.5 minus 7.5, our return metrics for the project were about 28% IRR, cash on cash was 18%, and the equity multiple was 3. So the LPs came out with an IRR of 25%, cash on cash of 10, and an equity multiple of 2.7. The GP had an IRR of 48, cash on cash was 10.62, and the equity multiple was 6.2. This model is a little bit different than what I showed in my previous video. I like it. It's pretty straightforward. There's not as much functionality from the standpoint of having your cost of construction timing. Like there's not an input or there's not a tab where you have an input with a start month and end month for your individual line items for expenses. So that's something that you could build into this model. But overall, it gets the job done. And I would consider it more of a quick back of the envelope for a deal that you're looking at. And hopefully today's video was beneficial. Thank you very much for watching.